And today's question is, my dog has started barking and lunging and aggressively running after people as they go past in the front yard. This is something that's really common, and it's something that I named the Postman Analogy, and this gives a really good example of what happens. And that's, initially, we're assuming it's a socialised dog. You put your dog out in the front yard and he's left there, and he sits on the balcony or under the bush somewhere or in a corner somewhere in the shade, and he just watches the world go by and there's not an issue. And that goes on like that for a little while. And the postman comes and he goes, stops, and he puts a letter in the letterbox, and he goes, and the world passes by and the dog's really nice and content. But one day something changes. The postman comes along and he's got a bunch of letters, some junk mail, and he puts them in. And the dog's watching. And the postman's still there putting him in. He hasn't gone, and the dog goes, what the hell's going on here? He just comes and he goes. Why has he stopped? Why is he out the front of my place? Why isn't he going? And the dog starts getting a bit worked up, overstimulated, a little anxious, a little fearful. And so he growls. Arrgh! Postman finishes putting the letters in, walks away. And the dog goes, oh, look at that. That got rid of him. I've just got a growl. So the next day the postman comes along, stops to put a letter in the box, and the dog, arrgh! Postman finishes putting the letter in the box and goes. And the dog goes, it worked again. And this goes on day after day. And then people start walking past. Normally he ignored them, but one day somebody slowed down. Somebody got a little closer to the fence, so he growled. And they went on their way. And the dog goes, look at that. I growled and they go. How good am I? And so the dog has now established that when he growls, people go away from his place, away from his area, and they leave him alone. And one day the postman comes. And today, he's not only got extra mail, he's not only got extra junk mail, he's got a small parcel he's got to put in there as well. And so he gets out and he fumbles around and he gets there, and the dog growls. Arrgh! And the postman still hasn't finished, so he's still going. And the dog's going, why isn't he going? I growled. He should go. But the postman's still there, putting the last of the things in. So the dog goes to the next weapon in his toolbox, and he barks. Ruff! And he lets out a nice deep bark, and the postman finishes what he's doing and walks away. And the dog goes, look at that. I barked, and he goes. He didn't want to go, but when I barked, he went. He went real good. And so the next day, the postman comes along again. The dog says, and he barks. The postman puts the letters in and goes, and the dog again goes, look at that. I won't growl anymore, I just bark, and he goes real fast. And you can see the pattern here. The dog's beginning to teach himself. He's beginning to teach himself territorial aggression. He's beginning to teach himself that when his behaviour escalates towards aggression, he gets what he wants. And the people go. So now when people come walking past the fence, the dog barks. And the people keep walking. And the dog goes, everybody goes when I bark. And so he continues to bark. And then one day something really out of the ordinary happens. Something strange happens. The postman doesn't go to the letterbox. He goes in and he goes up through the gate and to the front door. And the dog's, what's he doing? And the postman's got a parcel and he rings the bell. And the dog barks. And the postman still stands there and he rings the bell again. And the dog barks again. And he rings the bell again. Nobody's there. So the dog begins to think, well, what's happening? He's not going. And so the dog lunges and runs towards the postman, and just at that point the postman's given up ringing the bell and he's beginning to walk away. And the dog goes, look at that. If I run at him when he doesn't want to go, he'll go. And that's how I'll get rid of him. And so now the dog has taught himself that if he lunges at somebody that hasn't gone, they'll go. And so the next day when the postman comes up and just goes to put a letter in the post box, the dog lunges at the fence. Postman puts a letter in the letter box, goes on his way. And the dog goes, look at that, it works. And when people come past, the dog starts following the fence line, and he's growling and he's barking and he's lunging at them through the fence, and they keep walking by. And the dog goes, look at that, that gets rid of them. And now he's just escalated him to the next level. He's taught himself the next level gets rid of them even better. And then one day the postman comes in with a bunch of parcels, bypasses the letterbox, comes into up the stairs to the front door, and the dog's going, what's he doing in here? He knows not to. And the dog immediately lunges. And the postman's still there. And the postman sees that the dog stops just before him, ignores him, rings the bell again. And the dog says, why isn't he going? And he's barking and he's lunging and he's threatening, and the postman's still there. And then the dog goes to the next level because he's never been corrected. He was never told from day one that growl wasn't acceptable. He was never told from day one the postman was okay. So now his only other weapon is to bite. So he lunges and he bites. And now the dog sits in a pound. And that's the Postman Analogy. You cannot put a dog in a front yard and expect that at some point that dog will not learn, will not teach himself that aggression gets him what he wants. So at the first sign of aggression, a dog should be corrected. A dog should be taught that it's not okay. And more importantly, I say to people, don't leave your dog in the front yard for periods of time. Don't ever have your dog in the front yard without supervision, because there's a very big risk that your dog will teach itself to be aggressive. And that escalates and you end up with massive problems. So this is one of the reasons your dog begins to growl, bark, lunge and get aggressive towards people as they're going by. Your dog's much better off in the backyard than it is the front yard. There's less distractions, there's less risks. I hope that helps.